Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Nandish Marapati, and welcome to Accelerate 2020. Very happy to have you, everyone, in this session. My name is Nandish Marapati. Again, I'm the solution manager here at Creatio. I'm based out of Boston. So, good morning from Boston, and good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are. Very excited to be hosting this session for the next 45 to 50 minutes. The topic for today's for this particular event is customization and configuration capabilities for citizen developers. We have some very exciting features in 7.17 that I'm personally excited about because I consider myself as a citizen developer. But I do want to put out a disclaimer out there that this is mostly focused on citizen developers. We also have another track that is mostly focused on high-end IT developers. That would be mostly on the packaging and things like that. This is mostly focused citizen developers, so I just wanted to make sure that in the right track as such. So since we have a lot of topic to cover, let's take a quick look at the agenda for today's session. I thought that this would be a good idea to also introduce low code, simply because many times, beginning with March of 2020, we've been hosting a lot of sessions. And once the low code has been mentioned a couple of times, we do get a question about saying, what is low code? Where does that fit? So I thought that this would be a good opportunity to make sure that level set everyone about what low code actually is, why is that important? And then pivot towards understanding what are the latest features that we have for citizen developers, and then pivot towards the demonstration, and then answer any question and answers towards the end. With that out, let's jump into a quick overview of what low code is all about. So I've been using, I've been using a CRM applications or many other applications for the longest time. I spent about 20 years in the industry. And the two things that I was always familiar with is using packaged applications that is pretty much a general-based application. So what I mean by that is when you're looking at a core banking applications from a financial perspective, insurance or real estate or mortgage applications, these are applications that are pretty much broad-based. And typically bigger companies try to solve a lot of those all of those problems. But then when you take that applications and then implement or deploy it in your organization, it doesn't solve specific issues. And that has always been an issue with whether you're looking at from an HCM perspective, CRM perspective, supply chain solution, irrespective of which application you're looking for. And often what happens is that there is a shadow IT that eventually develops in such organizations, especially in enterprise organizations, because they have specific business problems or business processes that must be implemented. And these packaged applications typically are not built for that. So in such a case, a shadow IT with help of business users go through certain, build a custom applications that is solving a specific niche area. Sometimes it is done with the help of IT teams, sometimes it is not. In such a case, those custom development will be targeted to a microcosm of the business solutions that they're trying to solve. But then when you start taking a step back and seeing how is that custom development going to be maintained over a period of long time, you understand that from a total cost of ownership, it's going to get very difficult. And this is especially true of enterprise solutions where the initial owner of that custom development product has moved on, changed departments or left the company, and then subsequently the adoption rate goes down, nobody knows what is going on, then they have to go and build another completely new custom development. So there you have it. You have a packaged application that is built for general purposes and custom development that is built by a shadow IT team focused on a particular niche area. Now, obviously, we are living in 2020s, 21st century. Obviously, cost matters, right? So total cost of ownership becomes a big deal. In order to solve that particular area where you're going after a niche area of niche application, but also make sure that the total cost of ownership is lower, low-code platforms are becoming more and more as a right solution for that particular area. So low-code actually fills that gap where you're trying to solve a specific application, but also cost matters. So when you take a look at that, what are some of the key advantages of low code? And sometimes I also put no code in there because no code is simply drag and drop functionality. But some of the key advantages that we talk about is this democratizes the software development skills. So what I mean by that is, as long as you have some logical background, you're able to conceive some ability to connect certain entities, pretty much anybody can become a citizen developer. And personally, I am not a developer by any means necessary. I have done some basic programming back in my days with using Fortran or MATLAB or some other applications, but citizen developer simply enables anybody with some basic understanding of programming skills to drag and drop, connect different objects, and then build a complete business process. The idea here is that once that application is deployed into enterprise, you'll be able to change and adapt those business processes or applications very, very quickly. So what that enables you to do so is, as and when applications are rapidly deployed and solve that user pain points, the user adoption typically goes faster. And also, it starts to break down silos. So a good example of a low-code platform or a low-code applications would be, say, underwriting in insurance companies or contract management. It's a very niche area, but contract management typically involves sales department, it involves legal department, it might involve the customer. So there is all of these communications that needs to happen between the customer, sales department, legal department, and that must be audited and captured very nicely. So there is no dropping of balls from anybody. So such kind of reducing the silos, breaking down the silos are are excellent when it comes from low code applications. I already mentioned about total cost of ownership. And the way we explain that is because typically these platforms are built by citizen developers. So those would be like business analysts or business users, whoever that may be. And they're not highly paid, or they're doing this on a part-time basis. So the amount of time or money it costs to develop and continue to maintain these platforms are much, much lower. And that explains why the total cost of ownership for such platforms are pretty lower. And finally, from a user adoption perspective, when an application is built by the user, for the user, guess good things are going to happen. Because now you're able to visualize an application and then immediately build it and then deploy it. People love it, right? And that typically explains how the user adoption goes through the roof. So now that we have taken a look at low-code development, let's take a quick look at how Creatio enables this low-code platform development. Now we do that through a variety of means. One is the critical part is being the process designer. Because anytime when you build a new applications and how that process, whatever that workflow should look like, whether that be a customer onboarding, whether that be an employee onboarding, whether that be recruitment or warehouse management, risk management, whatever that is, typically these processes have a very structured flow from beginning to the end. And they are not only impacting one department, one user, they're impacting multiple users, multiple departments, again, silos. And previously, the only option for the users were to go into a constructor package such as Visio, and then pretty much sketch it out on a whiteboard, and then take that image and then kind of build that in an enterprise kind of a studio to make it into an executable business process. And that is a big issue. So Creatio has solved that issue using Studio Free, where you can actually conceive it almost like a whiteboard, invite your fellow peers to come in, make sure that all of the business processes are working perfectly fine using drag and drop functionality, and then export this as a BPMN 2.0 notation, bring that into Studio Enterprise, and continue to move towards making it into an executable business process. That's number one. The second way is through the page designer. And we're going to spend a lot of time in this particular view, actually, because a lot of those configurations, customizations that we're talking about is all about how quickly or how easily can you serve those applications depending upon certain business rules. So the idea here is that we give you a page designer so that you can create new entities or display those entities using section wizard. And whatever you do that from that blueprint aspect is then visualized to the end user in a easy to digest and easy to understand format. So in the background, you're seeing the blueprint, which includes page elements, legal entities, and different tabs. And once that is saved, the end result is what you're seeing on the right-hand side. Moving on to the unstructured business process. For people who are familiar with Creatio, we often talk about processes from the unstructured perspective and from the structured perspective. And the key distinction here is that in an unstructured business process, we are typically providing guidelines for our end users to figure out what are those steps that they need to make sure, they need to ensure to follow to go from, say, in this case, from the opportunity life cycle, what are the steps they should be doing in qualification, then go on to presentation, to proposal, and so on and so forth. These are best practices and recommendations that the sales team has come up with for their sales team, for the sales steps to follow. But what is unique about this is that the end user, in this case sales rep, has complete freedom about what to do and the sequence in which those steps should be executed. So for example, in presentation stage, they may decide to do the second step, which would be determine needs, requirements, pain points first, and then go to clarify all the steps, or they can do the clarify all the steps and then go to determine needs. So the order and the ability to do whatever they want to do is completely up to them. So this is almost kind of giving them a guideline. Now, why are we doing that? The reason is business processes or even applications, there's always exceptions. There is always one-off exceptions where not every sales cycle will go exactly the way it is. Not every customer onboarding will go exactly the process the way you have defined. So you always need that way out of creating a one-off situations, and unstructured process is a great way to do so. Now, what the second thing is a structured process. So what we mean by that is that in certain situations, say for example, contract approval process, there must be a sequence of steps that must be done. Even employee onboarding. So for example, in contract approval, there must be the master sales agreement or the MSA that needs to be sent to the customer. Customer is going to redline it, send it back to sales. Sales then reviews that, sends it to legal. Legal reviews it, and those corrections needs to happen in a closed loop. That is basically the step over there. You typically don't send out a MSA directly to legal without the customer review. So there is a very defined step. Also in employee onboarding, you collect the basic documents, at least in the United States. In the US region, you collect their social security number, immigration status, things like that before you start the training process. And from a training process, it can go into a probationary period. There must be a test, whatever that may be. So there's a logical step behind it, and there is no compromise on which to do first and which not to do second. In other words, you cannot collect their passport and social security number after they have done training. And that would be a disaster if they don't have the right immigration status. And that's what we mean by structured process. Follow them step by step. So we cater to both unstructured and to the structured business process. Now, once the application is built up, and we're going to spend some time on the dashboard as well, because it's some really neat feature that was added in 7.17 that I'm very excited about. Dashboards are a great way to, again, take a look at it from a low-code perspective, drag and drop functionality to understand how that application is behaving. What are the key insights that you're deriving from whatever applications that you have built, and understanding from the user adoption perspective, from the total cost of ownership perspective or the ROI, you can build dashboards as well. Now, one of the key things about Creatio is that these are all integral to Creatio. Many of the BPM low-code platforms typically will export data out into a BI tool. You don't have that issue with Creatio. You can build some very powerful dashboards inside of the Creatio platform. And of course, finally, from the mobile perspective, these days, mobile is a given. Everybody is using smartphones. Almost every demo that I have to do these days sometimes even starts off with the mobile applications, right? Anytime when we have to go and make a visit to talk about loan applications or whatever that is, or marketing team are attending conferences and they want to be able to very quickly make some notes or create a lead directly from mobile, you can create those custom applications and deploy that on the mobile side. So those are all the key elements of low code and how we do that. Now, we pivot over to the topic of the hour, which is the release features from the configurations and customizations perspective. And we're going to tackle this one at a time. So I'm going to give you a quick bird's eye view of what are the latest features that's out there, and then I'll pivot towards the demo. Now, you already know that business rules is a great way for you to display information, whatever object that may be, whether that be accounts or contacts or opportunities or risk management, whatever that may be, native or custom objects. Now you get additional rules to display the informations and details by different conditions. And we have also introduced formulas in business rules. So you'll be able to take some, you can do some mathematical calculations as part of it, or there is also interconnectivity between different objects. So what that means is I will now have the ability to take a data from an account object and then supply that to an opportunity object. So as long as there is a relationship between them, you'll be able to pull information from one object to another object using business rules. Very cool. Section Wizard, we'll take a look at how you can make multiple copies of section pages so that you can display the pages depending upon certain criteria. From a business process perspective, you'll be able to run business process for a handful of objects, not necessarily one at a time. And you can also work with collections. The other neat thing that was done is a version controlling for dynamic case management. We had that from business process perspective, but we did not have that from DCM. That has been introduced. Now you can also do formulas within dashboards. And then finally we'll talk about configurations on how the new interface has been done for the configurations perspective, and how you can create new objects, new packages, and then export those packages out of Creatio. So those are all the main topics that we have. So with that, I will switch over to the demonstration part. So I have now switched over to the demo. So this is the latest 7.17, as you can see over on the screen. So for the most part, we'll be spending on accounts, opportunities, contacts, leads, and dashboard. So the way this works is from an accounts, as soon as you go into the section wizard and then open up this page, one of the key things that you'll notice that is slightly differently from 7.16 is the ability to now make copy of this existing page. So this is a new feature. So if you simply click on copy, a new dialog box will open up and say that how do you want this new page to be different than the main page. And these are all the various ways in which you can have a different page layout. Obviously, in the case of accounts, this could be different types. So for example, your supplier page could be different than the customer page. Customer page could be different than the partner page. So depending on different types, or you can also do it by primary contact, by different industries. So for example, financial industry could have a different page view than manufacturing, than from say logistics and so on and so forth. So you can create different kinds of pages as well. Then if you decide to go and start making modifications to the page itself, one of the key things that was added was the ability to add new data. So for example, if I go into date and time and drag a new data type into the object, now you will see that the interface has changed. It is no longer what it used to be in 7.16. Some of that was already released out in 7.16.4, but for the most part, this was the old interface. So now you get the ability to say, what kind of format do you want? One of the annoying things for me in the previous version was anytime I said created by or I selected date and time, I had no option that the time was visible. And sometimes I did not want the time, I just needed the date. Now you can say, okay, give me date and time, or just give me date, or just give me time. So you have complete control over that as well. Now, in addition to that, we also have introduced different languages. So if you can simply extend on this language capability, you can now say, show me in different languages. So it will show you in the English, the German, or whatever languages that you currently have active inside of Creatio. So that is number one. The other thing is the ability to use various decimal places. So if you're using decimal places, you can get to say, I want a single digit after the dot, or I want 2 decimal places, or 4, 6, or even 8 decimal places. We can actually go up to 10, but that will require a little bit more configurations. But for the most part, between 1 and 8, most of your part should be able to cover. So that is something real cool that was added as part of the new interface. Now, moving on, as I mentioned, we are going to spend a lot of time on the business rules side. We have introduced some really neat business rules. So I went ahead and I've already created them. As soon as that gets loaded, I'll be able to show that to you. So let's tackle this one at a time. So the first one is the lead element on the page. So if you open this detail up, what it is saying is when the account type is customer, I want a particular detail to be showed up, and that detail happens to be leads. Why am I doing this? Well, in certain instances, certain details may not necessarily make sense. So for example, what I mean by that is if I go to the main account page and say the type happens to be a customer, and then if you go into the history tab, between the email and the invoices, the lead detail is available. Makes perfect sense because you're working with the customers in this case. But does it make sense when you're working with your own company? Because leads doesn't make any sense when you're looking at your own company or looking at with your suppliers or anything like that. So if you switch over and change the type to our company and then go back to history, you'll now see that between email and invoices, the leads don't show up. So now you can get very granular about saying that is that detail necessary for that particular account type. And this doesn't have to be accounts by any means necessary. This could be opportunities, this could be leads, or any object, even custom objects. The idea here is that you can get very granular on displaying a particular detail or not. So moving on to the next one is ability to show timeline. So you saw previously that we looked at the detail. Now we are going to look at the module. So these are all the various modules that is available for you. You can say show a feed, show the timeline, show the contact profile, whatever that module is. So basically what happens is if you go into our company and then look at the timeline is completely empty right now. There is no information in the timeline at all. On the other hand, if you change this from type to a customer, now you'll see that the timeline will start getting populated. Again, this is all based upon user experience. You want to make sure that the information that you're displaying is useful to your end user. So timeline only makes sense from a customer perspective and not necessarily from your own account perspective. Moving on to another one is the context and structure. I showed you previously that from a detail, you can get rid of a detail. You can get rid of a module. You can also get rid of a tab. So in this case, these are all the various tabs that is available in the account page. Account information, attachment and notes, connected to context and structure, feed and history. So in this case, I said that the customer, when the type happens to be customer, only then display the context and structure. Obviously, if you go into the customer side, there's context and structure that is visible. And if I change this to our company, context and structure completely disappears. It doesn't even show up, and any details hidden or visible within that is also disappearing. Now, why is this helpful? Now, this could be excellent in situations where you're working with, say, assets under management or some other details that is housed to a particular type. So this could be, doesn't have to be type of a customer. You could say that if the type happens to be a bank, then I want all of the assets under management that is bank related showing there. If the type is a manufacturing company, then maybe you may have a different set of details tagged together as a tab. So you can completely get rid of information within that tab depending upon what you want to do. So those are some really cool things that you can do as part of it. The other things that I have done is the ability to create some fixed discount in here. Now, this is nothing, honestly, there's nothing new in here. The reason I have done that is because I am going to use this functionality inside of opportunities. So in other words, I'm going to take this object and then pipe that information later on when I go into the opportunity record. So basically what happens is whenever the category happens to be a fixed discount, we are going to display the fixed amount over here. So what that means is if the category is, say, anything other than fixed discount, you'll see that the fixed discount disappears. And then if I select this as a fixed discount, the fixed discount comes up in here. So the use case could be that when you're working with, say, larger companies, they have already negotiated a pricing discount for their any products that they have purchased, then the sales team or the sales leadership can put that automatically in here so that when the sales reps start working on opportunities, this information is instantly visible for them in terms of not having to go and get unnecessary approvals, but that information should be visible in this in the application itself. So that would be a good example of that. All right, with that, let's go ahead and move on to the opportunity record. We'll switch over to the opportunities and take a look at the same ACOM record. Over here, as you can see, I have now selected opportunity amount and fixed price discount. You see that the fixed price discount is being pulled directly from the account page and the discount price is automatically calculated. Now, how has this been done? So for that, let's open up the section wizard again to take a look at what kind of rules has been established for the opportunity record. So as soon as that loads up, I'll take you to the business rules page. So previously, we have taken a look at showing information based upon tabs, details, and modules. This time, I'm going to show you how you can inherit properties from another object. So in this case, I've said that if the account is filled in and the account category is fixed discount and the opportunity amount is filled, then I'm going to set the field value. And when you say that, you get two options. When you use those Thunderbolt icon on the right-hand side. So there are two options in here. The first one is the value from another field. What does it mean? It simply means that if this opportunity record is connected to another option. So for example, this opportunity has its own set of numerical values that I can use, or this opportunity is connecting to other objects. In this case, opportunity connects to accounts, because you're connecting an opportunity to an account, to a contact, to customer need from a lead perspective. Basically, any connections is automatically shown to you. And then when I click on account page, it will tell me that these are all the numerical values in which I can start working with them. Either they are integers or they are decimal places. And I say that, hey, I'm going to work with the fixed discount because this account qualifies for fixed discount, so therefore I'm going to connect them. And that's basically what I've done. I've said that the value for this fixed price discount should be automatically populated. Whatever value is coming from the account page will automatically be populated in here. Now, on the other hand, for the discounted price, I can use a formula. So how does that formula work? It's exactly the same way, except that this time we're going to select the formula. And when you select the formula, it gives you a pretty much a studio kind of or a dialog box where you can say, these are all the parameters. Parameters are all that are numbers, so that you can do some formula actions on them. So it will show you everything that is available within the opportunity record. And then I'm simply going to say that I'm going to multiply the opportunity amount by whatever that opportunity discount amount is, and then automatically calculate that final price. So the way this is going to work is, as I change the opportunity amount, let's say from 4,500 to say 2,300, and then hit save, you can see that the discounted price automatically get calculated. And then if I change the account price within ACOM to something else, so let's go ahead and do that. And if I go to the account page and select ACOM and put some random value to say it's 6.785, 78 because there are 2 decimal places, and go to the opportunity record and select that page again. And if I change this to say 2000, you'll see that the fixed amount automatically changed to 6.78. So that's how it is connecting between 2 different objects, and I think this is very cool from that perspective. So the next step that we have implemented is the version controlling. So from a version control perspective, we are talking about dynamic case management, the DCM perspective. Dynamic case management obviously is mostly focused on unstructured business process. Now, if you compare this with the 7.16, you will now see a new field called properties. In 7.16, you had the ability to open or deactivate. There was no properties in here. So basically what you're doing right now is you can create a property. If you open up the properties over here, it's going to tell you how many versions do you have. And right now I only have 1 version, obviously, but you can have multiple versions about this. And this has been a frequent request from many of our customers saying that, hey, if I create a workflow or a dynamic case management, and then 2 months later, I realized that this DCM isn't working the way I wanted it to be, and I want to revert back to the previous version. Can I do that? And previously, the answer was no. You had to deactivate that, and then you had to activate a new one, and then you had to go back and forth. But right now, you have complete control over the version control. So you can simply select that previous opportunity, open up that from the just like you previously have done from the version controlling process. And now what is going to happen is the version is obviously 0 because this is a base version. You can do whatever changes you want. You can actually get rid of stages. You can add different steps, whatever that may be. Once you're done with all of those changes, now you have the ability to save as a new version or save as a current version. So you can either override an existing version or you can completely create a new version out of it. And that's how simple it is to create newer versions and then being able to go back and forth depending upon how it transpires. Very, very easy. Previously, you could only save. You did not have these 2 options as part of it. So that is a good way for you to control different changes and continue to monitor that. Moving on to the next topic, and that is the business process. So previously, if you had created any business process in here, so let me show you very quickly a simple business process that I have created, and this is to create a lead from a contact. And this lead from contact is basically the ability to create a lead out of a particular contact. So all I'm doing is reading a contact, and then I create a new lead as part of that contact, right? So this is a very simple business process, nothing really fancy about it. Now, in the past, what would happen is that you could go into a specific contact, and I can say, I'm going to select Alice Phillips, and I can select that run process and say create lead from a contact, right? And now in the background, a business process actually has run. And if I go into the lead section, there should be a lead for Alice Phillips that was created right around 7:33 my time, like a second ago, which is cool. But what we have done is to take it to the next level, right? So sometimes you want to execute this not for one object, but for multiple objects. So right now, what you can do is you can simply go into the actions button and select multiple records. And from multiple records, I'm going to select, say, Andrew Baker, Andrew Barber, and also Brenda, three people, and then say, you know what? I want you to run this business process for a couple of them, 3 of them at the same time. So rather than take them one at a time, now I have created them, selected how many are objects that I wanted, and now you can see that at 7:34, 3 different leads were created automatically. So now, even though you have done nothing, no changes in the business process, but the ability to select multiple selections and then say run business process is a very powerful feature. So that's number 1, and number 2 is ability to run it with collections as well. So for that, let's jump onto the dashboards. So one of the key functionalities that was released, I believe, in 7.16.2 or 7.16.3, one of those versions, was the ability to create pivot tables. And that was a very cool function. And it has many, many areas in which you can use them. Particularly from a sales perspective. So for example, I can go into the edit section and then click on edit. And this was previously a simple list. And this is how things used to be displayed. And now if I go into the pivot settings, I get different fields, right? So now I can come in and say, show me the owner over here. After the owner, I want the account. And after the account, I want it to be displayed by the name. And then I want the opportunity amount to be displayed, and then the opportunity final price. So basically what is happening is that it is now created a pivot table that looks something like this. It is now going to show you by different owners, and within the owners, it is going to show you by the account, and within accounts, you can have different opportunities. So this is not just limited to opportunities, by the way. This can be used for many other purposes. It could be leads, it could be custom objects. So you're aggregating everything by different individuals as part of it. Now, what has been extended in 7.16.7 is the ability to add calculated fields. So you can create new formulas as part of it. You can have multiple formulas as part of it. And again, this dialog reminds you of the similar functionality that I showed you previously in that business rules, right? So no different than that. So I've already created something in here. So this is basically the discount offer, and the formula expression using these formulas are, I've used the final price and the opportunity amount because those are the two columns that is available for me. If you need additional value, simply attach that as a column for your dashboards. And then all I'm doing is dividing the final price by the opportunity amount, taking that away from 1 and then multiplying by 100 just to give me the discount percentage. And now I can come in here and say, well, this is the amount that is being displayed. If I click save and then go back to the main dashboard, you will now see opportunity amount, the final price, and also the discount that was offered for both of those. So you can now create these kinds of really cool formulas as part of dashboards, and we'll continue to make more investments as part of it to continue to focus as we continue to go on the dashboard side. Now, and finally, from the packaging perspective, there has been multiple enhancement that has been done as part of that. So one of the key things is everything is now aggregated into the system designer. So if you go into this system designer in here and then scroll all the way down into the advanced settings, in 7.17, you're going to see a completely revamped user interface in terms of creating packages. And those packages are very simple to create now, like the previous version, which I thought was helpful, but not quite so. So right now, this is a much more modern user interface where you can say anything that is created by Creatio and should not be touched, by the way, will be grayed out, meaning you have no control over it. You won't be able to, you can at best export or you can view the properties of this particular package. This is how it looks like. But anything that you'll be doing would be considered as a custom package, and you will have complete control over deleting them, exporting them, and viewing the properties. So you can also visualize and say, show me all of the packages, and then say, show me only the objects that is part of it. And then from the account perspective, if I simply click on the account, it will show me what are the things that I have created. If you go into the column record, you'll see that if you recall, I had created two new objects, which was the fixed discount, which I then used in the opportunity record. I also had used the assets under management as well. So if you want to create additional columns, you'll be able to simply click on that and say what kind of columns do you want to create. You want to create a text, you want to create a number. Basically, whatever you used to be able to do in the previous interface, it's made much, much more user-friendly, whether they are working on different objects and then continue to add custom objects as part of it. Now, any changes that you want to do, obviously, you want to export that packages and then push it out into production. That's typically the way it operates. You're doing this on a testing environment and then push it to production. So from the packages perspective, on the right hand side, you'll see a folder with a plus sign. Simply click on that. It opens up a dialog box to give you to provide a name for the package. I can say that this is Boston, say 7 a.m., something like that. And then you can create version control, provide a descriptions, whatever that may be. And then I'm going to create and add dependencies as part of it. So okay, there should not be. I want to create that. Say Boston, create add dependencies. I didn't have to. I think I was giving a space in there. So now it's basically creating a new package. And then as a new package is being created, it will then ask me, as this package is created, what is that package depending upon, right? So what does it inherit? What are the various properties it's going to inherit from other packages? So you can see that the custom is automatically is there, because whatever package that I create is automatically dependent on that custom package, because that's how it is being done. But for the particular Boston properties, it will tell me that these are all the various packages that I can go scroll one by one, or I can use the search functionality and say something like dashboard and say, is there anything related to dashboard? I can say these are the two that I want to select. I can add more dashboards as part, maybe whatever that is. I can take a look at the system information, dependencies, I put some descriptions in here, and then I hit apply, and now it is creating a new package for me called Boston that is dependent on the custom object, but then it also depends on other objects, which is basically actions, analytics, and base. And once that dependency has been created, it will immediately be visible for me in the system settings record. And once the system settings record, I have the packages, I will then be able to create a package out of that, and then being able to push it out into production. So this is going to take a couple of minutes for it to be completed. Right now, you can see that from all of the packages, I have previously had just the Boston custom. Right now, I've created a Boston. Obviously, at any point of time, you can delete them. You can view the properties. You can add additional packages if need be. So you have very straightforward. And then, of course, if you want to take this and if you want to export this out into the testing environment, it's very straightforward. You simply export this package, just the Boston package, and then it creates a zip file. And then you'll be able to take this zip file and push it into production after necessary testing has been completed. And finally, before I close out and then take a couple of questions from the actions perspective, these are all various options that is available to you. But to get a little bit more deeper into the configurations and packages, there is a separate track that our product owners are working on, and you'll be able to get more detailed information around it. I'm focused mostly on the citizen developer side in here, but I hope this was a very helpful session as part of it. So with that, I believe I have about 6 or 7 minutes left. So I can go ahead and take any questions that is out there in the chat window. Okay, so I see a question about what is the most complex application that has been built in this platform. That's actually a great question. One of the coolest applications that I have seen, and there was actually a webinar that was done, I believe in May with by one of our partners. That was a warehouse management system. So Reply was one of our partners who used the low-code platform to build a complex warehouse management system entirely inside of Creatio, where they were able to work with manufacturing companies to receive a defective product and go through the due diligence of going through multiple departments. And that was a very comprehensive, I think 30, 35, 40 minutes worth of information that is part of it as well. Now, also from an applications perspective, if you simply go to our marketplace, there are many vertical solutions as part of it. So I've taken a look at contract management, I've taken a look at document management, I've taken a look at risk management. Those are all vertical solutions. So there is no limitations on the most complex part. Obviously, like I said earlier, from a low-code perspective, you need to understand that we are focused on a niche area. We're not trying to build a CRM or an HCM or a supply chain solutions out here. The idea is to focus on a particular problem area, but then you can go a little bit wider and deeper. And as you can see, we are adding more and more functionality for the developers, citizen developers, to get more and more powerful. And as and when those applications are there, I suspect there'll be much more wider solutions. The other thing is, how does low code drive speed and agility? That's the second question that I'm seeing in the chat. Like I mentioned earlier in my slides, as you can see, also everything is drag and drop from either configuring the pages or from creating a package, creating package dependencies, being able to export those packages from testing into production, ability to work on dashboards. So the ability and the speed in which you can make those changes are very rapid. And these changes do not require IT resources. So what that means is, if you don't, if the business users are doing so, then it's very simple. They do whatever they want to do in the testing environment, invite their users to come in, make sure that it is going through due diligence, at least from a user acceptance testing. And once everything is being checked out, then you push it to production with the help of IT at that part of time. So the involvement of IT in the low-code applications typically is very minimal, because they will either be pushing that into production, but not necessarily being involved in the bulk of the development work itself. And also at the same time, if you send it to IT, they typically put it into their backlog because they have much more mission-critical applications they're working on. We've heard of horror stories where many of our customers are trying to do a change in the business process, trying to add in new dashboards, trying to create a custom object, and it's taking them 3-6 months for the IT to assign them resources to them, and they don't have that. They cannot wait because their competitors are already ahead of them. So with low code, the business users can do this very quickly, and therefore they become very, very powerful. And I'll think I have about 3 minutes left, so I'll take one last question. And that question is about, what's the most common error performed by citizen developers? I probably the best way to answer that is to say, don't be too ambitious. The most common error is that they forget that this is a low-code application built for a specific niche area. So always start smaller to make sure that it works. Build that credibility to make sure that your rest of your team members are confident that this application does exactly what it does. They see the productivity gains, and once that is done, you can slowly start to expand that. If you are very ambitious and try to do a lot, then it can get very frustrating, because you may not have all of the elements of an application development such as likes of C# or other programming language could offer you. So that is something that I would say crawl, walk, and run is probably the best approach when it comes to working with low-code applications. I think with that, we are almost at the end of the session, so I'm going to stop sharing. And I think I want to thank you once again, everyone, for giving us the opportunity to present our latest features, 7.17. I hope this was helpful. We're going to have another repeat session at 7 p.m. Boston time. I look forward to seeing some of your peers in that session as well. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.